When the legislation was first introduced to close the plant in 2015, there was a lot of tension. Labor was unhappy. Climate activists were unhappy that it was so far out. 2015 was too far away to close this big emitter.
We had people commuting from Tacoma, from Raymond, from Longview to these jobs here. It's not the only game in town, but it has been for 35, 40 years, and it's going to be hard to replace it.
There were many folks that were saying, just regulate them until they go away. Don't make a deal with them. Don't let them sell any coal power. Continue to apply the screws and they will collapse.
Washington is made up of small communities that contribute a lot to the economy and to the natural environment and to education. Centralia is one of those places that has a tremendous amount going for it.
One of the reasons I like living here, I stayed here for 25 years, is we all have connections. I can't tell you how many kids I'm coaching soccer now that I've coached their parents. The whole community becomes pretty in touch with each other. It was largely dependent on natural resource extraction. Also, one of the major industries here is the steam plant out at TransAlta.
The coal plant is the big industry. As they like to say, it is their Boeing, it is their Microsoft. And so the town, the economy, the tax revenue, the jobs, the indirect jobs have been really very dependent on the coal plant. TransAlta plant produces about 10 million tons of carbon a year, and that's about 10% of our entire greenhouse gas footprint in Washington state. So it is hands down the biggest individual polluter in the state. That's equal to about 2 million cars, just to give you a sense of scale of just how big that is for the carbon dioxide that it produces.
In 2005, there was a question about whether they were going to meet this next round of air pollution requirements. The owners were facing lawsuits over non-compliance with their air pollution requirements.
We had a couple of legislative sessions where there were busloads of protests on one side or the other, and it was quite controversial about both the local health impacts, what do we do about regional haze impacts on Mount Rainier, and what do we do long-term about carbon pollution.
We had approximately 7 different lawsuits that were out there, and TransAlta sat down and working with the governor's office to come up with a plan on how to reduce the emissions. Then 2011, session started and the work became, I would say, fast and furious based on legislation being introduced that was trying to shut the plant down in 2015.
They were looking for reduction in air pollution in the environmental community and a reduction in greenhouse gases. The company, if they were going to shut it down, they wanted to know what their future was. The community's interest, starts with Bob Gunther going, wait a minute, that's my job. It's my kid's job. It's my family's job. So from a state assistance point of view, what's the future for them? How do they find other jobs? And what can the community rally around as an alternative source of employment? There's your common dilemma probably for any coal town.
Most of these homes were built by folks that worked at the power plant or the mine, a good share of them. If you look at all the fire stations and all the high schools and all the tax base that has built our infrastructure in the last 40 years because of this plant, it's been very significant. And we've got a big job ahead of us. We've got to use every facet we can to help rebuild the economy after we lose this plant.
Anytime you're losing a major employer and high-paying jobs with benefits, that economic support to a community this size is felt, and there's a lot of fear. When the coal mine shut down and we lost those jobs, that was felt, and it was not only felt economically but emotionally as well.
This is the extreme east end of the mine, and you can see up here some of the reclamations that's taking place this year. When they shut the mine down, 650 workers lost their jobs at $70,000 a year. These were good jobs, wages, hours, and working conditions, and our community really suffered when we lost that.
This proposal was extremely contentious because the plant and plant workers were extremely worried about the impact, the fear of losing their jobs, the impact on the community, loss of tax revenue. So this was the biggest deal that could have ever happened, the biggest nightmare that could have ever happened for that town. There is a photo of a billboard that they put up during the heart of this campaign. It said, "Sierra Club, leave our Centralia power plant alone," right on I-5. So this was hard. So Bob jumped in quickly and said, "Okay, well look, then why don't you just come down and get to know what the community's about? And would you come down and do a tour?" "Yes, of course we would."
I brought the Sierra Club folks up here to take a good look at this because I wanted them to have an overview of the vastness of this area.
We toured the plant, we toured the grounds, we toured the old mine, we toured the surrounding area and the town.
In watching the reaction, the body language of some of the folks that I was with, it was like, we didn't realize this. We're glad we came because now we have a good picture in our mind of what we're talking about when we say the power plant in the Hannaford Valley.
I think they all wanted us to learn that we're real people, it's a real community, and there's real impacts. And so don't come in here and do a campaign unless you know what it's like from our end.
This deal provides, I think, a great replicable model for other communities facing transition to develop a timeline and an investment strategy that creates more certainty for them.
The company was looking at repowering the facility and not using coal anymore. And they decided we'd rather have the certainty. We'd rather know we're going to shut down. We'd rather know when. We're going to know what the workers can do. We know how much time we need to replace it in order to make sure the grid is reliable. We're going to figure out how the community has an alternative, a sense of the future for themselves.
TransAlta agreed to provide $55 million in transition funds in 3 categories: energy efficiency, community and economic development, and clean energy technologies.
As part of the agreement, TransAlta agreed to shut down the first coal unit at the end of 2020, the second coal unit in 2025. They also agreed to install the SNCR technology, which was added in 2013. The $55 million is providing opportunities for the community to have investments made, and it provides for displaced workers.
Part of it is going for direct worker support, and part of it is for education and training. So if any worker wants to go back to college, get additional training for new skills, we're making funds available for that.
Centralia College has received 2 grants for solar projects, for lighting upgrades, and we've recently done one for student housing for weather and efficiency.
We were able, with a grant from the Coal Transitions Board, to try out a solar array on one of our rooftops. It really makes a big difference to be able to have that kind of money out there to allow us to invest in these new technologies and to upgrade old technologies. And so for us, the college did quite well on this, but the rest of the community is doing well as well.
This house was built in 1916, so it's an older home. And when we first bought the house, it was cold and the fireplace wasn't working the greatest, so I was having to get up every 2 to 3 hours to stock the stove.
With the flexibility of the TransAlta funding, it's allowing us to do these homes and do the deep retrofits that are required to make these houses more energy efficient.
What that really allows is an opportunity for a runway or a smoother landing for this community. And it also for TransAlta, it gives them a chance to recover some of the investment that they've made over the years, because we know that the future is going to be changing as we go to the green energy economy. I've said to everybody, there is your solar farm. There's where a solar farm should be. Now, TransAlta has announced that they're working on over 900 acres of that ground right there to put solar on.
Very excited about the Tono Solar Project. This is a project that's just getting underway. We're taking reclaimed mine property and turning it into a community solar project. Tono's solar project would allow TransAlta to maintain a presence in Centralia. We would be able to support jobs, the local economy, and it would be the largest solar project in Washington State.
We have to figure out solutions. The world's changing. When you're looking at the overall relationship between corporations, and communities, and governments. And I think this has been a good model. I hope that it's used.
For other communities, it's worth the effort to invest in the communication and the dialogue, and then to develop a plan for that transition, because the transition is coming and we should be forward-looking in embracing it.
Regardless of what organization you are with, whether it's the business, the government, the environment, you can't look at it black and white. You have to see that there's gray. This is a change for everybody.
It took a while to sort of level set the culture, but it was much more about, we need to get something done. We have a number of parties with us that need to be taken care of. How do we do this together? Because it sort of comes down to environment, labor, business opportunity combined. Help the business get to clean, help the community stay whole, and you can get it done.
You know, sometimes common sense, common ground is not taken advantage of. And one of the reasons it's not taken advantage of is that people get their opinion in a trench, and they form a defensive line for their opinion and refuse to actually sit down and collaborate or talk about a better way of doing things. I believe if we really care and we really work in a collaborative manner, that we can find a solution for tough problems at any time we so desire, if we got the heart and we got the will to do it.